right, let's go ahead and get started. So hi, I'm Zoe. Today we're going to be building a to-do app using Next.js, Material UI, of course React, TypeScript, and a few other tools that we'll install along the way. So if you're not already following along, head over to Davidson Programming Academy on YouTube to follow along, and subscribe if you want to comment on the stream and things like that. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we're going to be doing is, we're going to be trying to build this app right here. So it's just a simple to-do app with a little linear gradient background. You can add a new to-do. You can add a to-do number 3. You can submit the to-do or just submit it by hitting enter. You can delete the to-dos, and then also when you refresh, the to-dos will persist on the page. So that's what we're trying to achieve here with our tutorial today. So let's go ahead and actually start this. So to start this, we're going to use a starter template just to get up and running a little bit faster. And it's this one right here, mux-ts, just because putting all 3 of Next.js, MUI, and TypeScript together takes a little bit longer, and I don't want us to waste time doing that. So what I've done already is created a repository here that I'm just going to clone to my computer, and we're going to get started with that. All right, cool. Let's go ahead and get this one opened, and awesome, we can go from there. All right, so the first thing we'll want to do, like we usually do when you open up an NPM project, is you want to go ahead and install. So we're going to type in npm I and install the packages in the project. Following that, so once that completes, we are going to go ahead and run it, and we should be able to pop it up on the side here. So let's do npm run dev. Awesome, and it's started. And if I go to localhost 3000, it should pop up over here. Awesome, cool. So we have our next app up and running. Great. Now what we want to do is actually go ahead and build our to-do app. So as we saw in the example, right, we want to have, there's like a few different components we want to think about when we're thinking about building this app. We have the larger to-do container, we have this input, we have this header, we have a button, we have individual to-dos, there's the ability to delete, to check, the check state. So there are a whole bunch of things we're going to need to consider as we're building this project. So let's go ahead and get started. So hopping back over to our code, let's go ahead and create a new folder. I'm going to call it components. And I'm going to create a new file within that. I'm going to call it to-do container, and that's just going to be our container. Now I'm using TypeScript in this, so it's going to be a .tsx file, and that just allows us to be sure that we're passing the correct types around in our project. So I'm just going to use our React function arrow component, create the to-do container component, and then we're going to go to pages, the index, and we're going to basically clear out everything that's in our Next.js right here, and then we're just going to put in our to-do app. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to do to-do app, and then we're going to clear out everything in this middle section right here. And if you do have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or let me know, and I'll periodically hop in and answer them. All right, so we're going to import to-do container and save that. And great, so we can see it up here. To-do container has been imported. Awesome, working so far. The next thing we're going to do, we're going to get rid of a few of these like built-in styles and things like that. Get rid of these files that we don't necessarily need. Next thing we're going to do is we are going to change the background, right? So we want the background of this whole app to be some sort of linear gradient or something. So what I'm going to do is look up the CSS for linear gradient. And let's see. This is the pretty good color, I think. So I'm just going to copy this here. I mean, they have a few different options, but this seems pretty simple, a little bit more minimalist. So we're going to use that one for our app here. So to do that, I'm actually just going to put it as a style on the whole page here. So I'm just going to add an inline style of background and save that. And because this is in React, we do need to put some quotes around that and save that. And there we go. We see that it's given the background, but just to a really tiny portion. So what we got to do now is actually set the entire height of that container. So we want to do height 100 view height. So it's going to be 100% of the height of whatever container it's in. Awesome. So we have our little container. It's working so far. I think there's another property actually that I can add, which is like a turn. So I can kind of give it a little bit of turn. So I can do like a 0.125 turn, I believe is the property. And if I save that, yeah, the linear gradient kind of shifts to the side. So just gives it a little bit of a difference from, not literally copying and pasting what's there. All right, cool. We should be good with this. Oh, you know what? One more thing. I do want the to-do container to be centered on the page, and the easiest way to do that for me right now would be to change this to a flex box. So if I do display flex and save that, and then if I do flex, justify content center and save that, as you can see now, it's there centered on the page. Awesome. So we can kind of close this out for the moment and then focus on our to-do container itself. Now, if you notice in our example, right, it was this like white background with, the nicely curved edges and things like that, and it was a little bit down from the page. So let's go ahead and start building that part out. So in the container itself, we want to add some styles, right? So style, we want to have a background color, and it's going to be white. And then we want the max height to probably be about like 50 view height for the moment. We'll just leave it at that. And then we're going to set the margin, the top margin, to maybe be 5 rem or 5 view height or 10 view height maybe. That looks good for now. One more thing I want to add is some padding. So let's do 2 rem all around for padding. And then the border radius. So I'm going to do a border radius of 1 rem and save that. Cool. So it's looking kind of closer to what we have here. I think we also probably want to do a minimum width of maybe, I don't know, 20 view width. Maybe a bit more than that. Let's do 40. All right, that looks a bit better. Cool. So we have it, and it's actually going to shift size depending on the size of our page. So maybe 30, 40, depending on the size of our page. We can think about that. All right, and yeah, so question in the chat. If you want to see the screen, hop on to YouTube. I've dropped a link in the chat earlier on. Should be like the first comment there. I'll try and pin it again. No, it's not letting me pin it. But yeah, if you just scroll up to the top, first comment in there is a link to the YouTube channel. It's also just called Davidson Programming Academy on YouTube. And you can totally follow along with the entire screen sharing live tutorial. All right, so moving forward, the next thing we're going to want to do here, let's add this little header right here, this H1. So because we're using Material UI, we have different components, pre-built components that we can interact with, and one of them is called typography. So what we can do is use this typography container, or typography component, sorry, and then we're going to type in to do and close that out. And then to use a typography component, because right now you see we're using it as just like regular text, we actually have to use something called a variant. And we're going to use the H1 variant because every page should have an H1. Now, as you can see, that's like way too big. There are 2 ways to handle this. One, we could kind of dive into the themes of Material UI and the styles related to the themes and basically create our own custom H1. We could do that, but seeing as this is a one-off for one page, I'm just going to use the SX property, which is a special, basically the style property for Material UI components that allows us to override the typical CSS styles, and we're just going to use that instead. So we're going to type in SX, and then I'm going to use the font size of, I don't know, let's say 3 rem. And then we'll do font weight of, let's just do 500. Cool, that looks pretty good. All right, so we have our header, we have, oh, and we'll actually change it to to-dos. We have our header, we have our box, our container. Now we need some sort of like input box, a submit button, and the actual to-dos themselves, right? Cool. So for for the input box, let's do that. Let's make up the to-dos first. Let's style these individual to-do items, and then we'll come back to the input. So in order to style the to-dos, we're going to need some mock data because we need some sort of mock to-dos to work with. So we'll do const mock to-dos, and we'll make it an array of to-do. So to-do 1, to-do 2, and to-do 3. So just an array of strings. And then what we'll do down at the bottom here is we're going to do to-do mock to-dos dot map. For each to-do, we want to return. And we could just do a div, right, with to-do. But what we're going to actually replace this with is a component. So right now they're just displaying as we expect. Oh, and we also need a key prompt. We'll fix that in a second. Key would be, let's use the to-do for now. So what we want to do here is we actually want to make components for each of these. So let's go ahead and create a new component. We're going to call it to-do item.tsx. Save that. And then we need to now style these and pass them into the component. So we can replace this div with to-do item, import it from to-do item. And you'll see right now it's just replacing with to-do item. And we're going to actually pass it to do. So to do. So instead of displaying it, it's going to be a self-closing element. It's giving us a little error now because we haven't actually added the property to do item. So let's do that. So to do item is going to take in to do, and it's going to be a string. So we need, because it's TypeScript, we need to create an interface or a type and just define what to do is. So to do is going to be of type string, and then these are of the props type. And then we're going to display the to-do in the div. And if you'll notice on the right-hand side, our to-dos have changed from to-do to to-do 1, to-do 2, to-do 3. So we see that it's actually working correctly. All right, I have a question in the chat. What's your question? Just drop it in the chat and I will answer as I have time. If you're looking for a mentor, definitely check out the link on my page, on my bio, that will enable you to sign up for a free call with me, and we can discuss, what problems you're having. I can troubleshoot anything you need to work on. I have some free courses available as well, so totally up to you what you want to talk about, but definitely check out the link on my profile pages. All right, but yeah, any questions, please drop them in either the chat on YouTube or the chat on TikTok. All right, awesome. Next step. What we're going to do now is we're going to style these, right? So as you can see here, there's like this gray background here, and it spans the whole width of the container. So basically what we want to do, we want to go ahead and create that. So we're going to put a style of, let's see, we want to do a background color. I want to use an RGBA color, and I want to do like a gray, like a light gray, yeah, like that. So we're going to do background color, it's going to be that, and I'm going to put quotes, and then awesome, cool. Now they all have the background color I was kind of going for, but we do want some spacing and things like that. So let's add a margin bottom to each of them of 1 rem, and then let's add a border radius of, I don't know, let's say 0.5 rem. Not too much. Might be all right. Go with that for now. Cool. So we have our to-dos, and then we need a little bit of padding too. So let's do maybe another 0.5 rems of padding. All right, cool. Awesome. Looking pretty good. What this also making me realize is that there's not enough space between the H1, the bottom of the H1, and the start of the to-do. So I'm going to hop back over to the to-do container, and I'm actually going to add some margin to the bottom of the actual header itself. So let's just add like 1 rem of margin there. Just give it a little bit of space. All right, so now we have our 3 to-dos displaying, but if you notice, we're missing a couple of things. We're missing this like checkbox, and we're also missing this delete button. So what we're going to do is add that within the to-do item component, right? So we want to be very cognizant of sort of like repeating our code too much. So by creating this to-do item component, we're actually saving a lot of time in the future as new items, new to-dos are created. Basically, we'll create this one component, and if we ever need to change the stylings, it will change the stylings for all of the components. So let's go ahead and do that. So I am going to go over to, I believe there's a material UI component. So let's do MUI checkboxes. I believe there is a particular checkbox we can use. Yeah, so just, we want something just like that, right? So a checkbox. So I'm going to copy this and import it into our to-do. So we'll bring that there. And we just need to tell it that we're importing it from material UI. And we don't have a label for this one, so we'll just leave that as it is. All right, awesome. So we have our to-do, we have our checkbox, and it works. And now we just need a trash can. So I think I might have a trash can already on my computer. Let's see if I can find it. Let's see. All right, yeah, I've got one right here. So let me copy that and drop it in the public folder here. So with Next.js, you want to put your images in the public folder because that's where it knows to look for it. So we have a big trash can here, a PNG, so we can now access this and use it in our app. So we also want to use something called Next image, or the image component from Next. This one right, oops, that one right there, yeah. And we're going to add the source, which is going to be / I believe it was delete.png. And the alt, because it should always, your images should always have an alt, should be delete button. We should actually make this into a button just to be accessible. We're getting an error here, and it's saying that we must use width and height properties or layout equals fill. So I'm going to give this a width of, let's say, 16 and a height of 16 as well, and save that. And there we go. We have our little trash can. But you'll notice that everything's sort of like clumped together on one side. So what we want to do right now is we want to actually separate them so that there's a little bit of distance between them. So what I'm gonna do is wrap the checkbox in the to-do. So I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna create another div here and wrap those two there. And then I'm going to make this outer div, I'm gonna make it a flex box. So I'm gonna create display flex. And then we're gonna do justify content. We're gonna write in space between. And then that should push them to the other sides. I'm also gonna wrap this button, this image in a button, and see if that helps at all with that interesting styling we've got going on there. All right, cool. That's looking a little bit more normal. And then with this one here, I'm also, if you notice, they're slightly off, like the top and the bottom of the items are slightly off. So what I'm going to do here is make this also a flex box and just align the top and the bottom there. Display flex, and then we're going to do align items center and save that. Awesome. Cool, so we have our checkbox, we have our to-do, whatever our to-do will be, and then we have our delete button. One last thing I want to do before we finish up with this component is actually remove some of these extra stylings from the delete button, because those are sort of just the built-in stylings for a button. So if we go to the button and we add in the style prop again, we're going to remove the border. So we're going to type in border none, and then we're going to type also, we're going to have no background. So background will also be none. Oops, none. And if we save that, awesome. We have no background, no border, we just have a button and a checkbox. Any questions? No questions. All right, well, if you're new, please scroll to the top and check out the link on the YouTube channel if you're on TikTok, because we do have a screen share that's going on with this that you can actually just follow along with the tutorial. Cool. So continuing on. So we have our, where did it go? Oh, sorry. So we have our checkbox, we have our to-do, we have our delete button. Now let's worry about our input and our submit button, right? So when we add in a new to-do, we want when we hit our submit button, we want it to populate to this list, right? So there are a couple of things we want to consider when we're doing this. We probably want to start thinking about creating some sort of store. So like in the Redux sense, or using Zustand or something like that. So we're able to basically store all of our data in one location, and also so that our data will persist across like page reloads and things like that, right? Because right now when I reload this page, this stays because I've put it in local storage. So let's work on adding that feature to it. All right, so we're gonna go back to to-do container, and we're gonna add another piece here, which is, I believe it is, let's look it up. It's the MUI text input, text field, right? Okay, so I think we want to do this like outlined one here, so I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste that in here. Oops, that is all of them, just want one. Save that, and we're going to import this from Material UI. Awesome. And if we look at our app, we have our little outline there. Cool. The other thing I want to do now, because this is going to be kind of like a form component, I'm going to wrap it in the form element. So I'm going to type in form and just wrap that in a form, and then also add a button here. We're going to use a MUI button, and we're going to type in submit for that one. I think they do have different variants of this button. Let me look it up here. Actually, that might be a little easier. MUI button. And yeah, so I think I'm going to go with a contain button. So we're going to type in variant equals contained and save that. And then similar to how we adjusted the styles of the header, because this is a like blue button, I don't really want that kind of vibe for it. So I'm going to type in SX and add in the background. We're just going to actually copy the background color from that page that I said we were done with. I'm just going to borrow this from that and use that as our background. So it kind of has a similar style to the rest of the page. All right, awesome. It's looking a little bit wonky still. I think we need a couple of things. So I think for our form component, we need a display flex. Big fan of flex boxes. Display flex. We're gonna do, align items into the center, so that button kind of shrinks down a little bit. And what else are we gonna do here? We're gonna do justify content space between, similar to how we did the to-dos and we had the button sort of spaced from the actual test itself. So space between, we're gonna save that. All right, awesome. So if you notice when I get it big enough, you'll see that there's a little space there. One last thing I'm gonna do is just add a little margin on the bottom there, similar to how we did it with the header, just so that there's a little room between the top and the bottom. So we're gonna do margin bottom, 1 rem, and save that. All right, awesome, cool, looking a lot better now. One thing I'm going to add to the text field now, as you see, we don't necessarily have that margin to the right all the time, but we do want it. I'm going to add margin right of 1 rem and save that. All right, cool, so we should always have a little bit of space there. Things are looking a lot cleaner. So any questions in the chat? All right, no questions in the chat. Well, if anybody has any questions, let me know. Let's hop over and work on the actual logic behind this. So as I mentioned, we want to think about using Zustand or Redux for this. So we want to install one of these as a package, probably. So I think because it's fairly simple what we're trying to do, I think I'm going to want to use Zustand. Let me just look up the documentation on that. All right, so we have npm installed Zustand, that's how we install it, and then we can create a pretty simple store here, which is really all we need. We just need to be able to like add to-dos, delete to-dos, and maybe track whether they're checked or unchecked. Maybe we can do that in the state as well at the end if we really want to. So let's go ahead and install Zustand. All right, cool. So now that we have Zustand installed, and if you guys can't hear me properly, just let me know. We are gonna hop over and I'm gonna create a new folder. I'm gonna call it store. I'm gonna create a new file called index.ts, and let's follow this format here. So we're gonna import create from Zustand. Awesome, and then we're gonna create a store. So const use store equals create set and then we're going to use to-dos instead of bears. They use bears, we're going to use to-do. So for our to-do is going to be probably an object with, it's going to have an ID, which is going to be a string. And actually, let's create the type of to-dos here. So let's create one more folder first. We're going to call it types, and we're going to create one more index.ts. So we're going to create export type to do. And so, okay, well, let me think about what we want it to do to have, right? So we want it to have an ID, as I mentioned. So that's going to make it easier for us to delete. So an ID, which is a string. We want it to have whatever the to-do actually is. So let's call that the description. And that's going to be a string as well. And then, as I mentioned, we might want to have that feature where we're able to toggle it. So let's call that checked, and like whether or not it's checked or unchecked. And we are going to have that be a Boolean, so true or false, checked or unchecked. All right, so now that we have our type, we can say that the to-do is going to be, initially it's just going to be an empty array, and we're going to do to-dos. It's an empty array of to-dos. What's going on there? This should be within this. That should be over there. All right, so to-dos is an empty array. And then we want to add to-do, so that'll be our first action. So what we want to do here is we want to create an arrow function, and then using that set, we want to set the state to be, what do we do? So following this, I'm looking on the right here at the Zustand documentation. So we want to do, we're accessing to-dos, we're setting to-dos to be, and then how do we want to do this? We want to do, it has to be like the array. So like whatever is currently in the array of to-dos plus whatever new to-do, right? So we want to set the state to be, I think it's state.todos. Yeah, that's how they do it. State.todos, comma, to-do. And that would be the new to-do. Oh, and we should add to-do here so it knows what we're talking about. And to-do would be of type to-do, which I should import so it works properly. Cool. All right, so comma there. State. Oh yeah, we don't have a type there. So the type for this, I believe they do have some documentation on this. We're using the TypeScript. I believe the type is like you want to just create this as a type. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's interface store, and it's going to be to-dos, which is an array of to-do, and then we're going to have add to-do, which is going to take in a to-do, which is of to-do, or no, sorry, it's not going to take in a to-do. What it's actually going to take is in a description, because we're actually going to generate, yeah, let's do that instead. So add to-do is going to take in a description, which is of type string, and it's just going to return void. So in this here, what I'm going to do actually is create an object, because really each of, as we defined it here, a to-do is actually an object. So it's going to have an ID, a description, and a check state. And when we're adding this, we want to automatically generate an ID. We don't want, like, the person who's adding a to-do is not thinking about whether or not they're like adding the to-do. So what we want to do here is actually have this be, like, we're going to generate the ID at this step. So we're going to do ID, and we're going to generate it using, I believe it's the UUID library. Yeah, npm install uuid, and that we're going to use this import v4 is uuid, and then we're going to generate a uuid when the time is necessary. And then the description will be the description, and then we'll add that check state because we've specified that it's there, and checked will be false to begin with. One more thing we haven't done yet is add in the state, I believe. Yeah, you just add it right after create. So we're going to use, we're actually going to call this to-do state and add that right there. All right, and we're going to save that. And we're getting an error now. Description are incomparable. Oh, because this is supposed to be a string. To-dos is missing in types. To-dos, never. Oh, I'm mixing up the D's. All right, cool. And that is just because it hasn't reloaded, I think. Or do I need to save dev? Let me try save dev to fix this error here. Okay, close that, open it back up. Awesome, error is fixed. So nothing has changed on the actual UI side. If you guys have any questions, do let me know. I know I'm kind of running through this, but I will make a longer, sort of more in-depth tutorial on like step-by-step how to do this if folks are interested in seeing that. Cool. And I can also, I see a comment in the YouTube chat, can I show my VS Code settings in settings.json? Definitely will make a tutorial on that as well. Thank you for the suggestion. If there's like a specific setting you're asking about though, do let me know. But yeah, continuing on with the tutorial here. So we've created this add to do, right? So in theory, when we call this action use to do, we should be able to access it. And one more thing I've noticed here is we also want to export this so we can access it in the container. So let's go ahead and like try this out and see if we can get it to work. So if we go to do container, we want to basically add to this list of to-dos every time we hit the button submit. So two things we're gonna have to do here first. First, we're gonna have to access all of these to-dos. So if we go to the documentation here, we can see how to access these actions. So right here, we can create basically just a variable, and I'll call it to-dos because this is going to be the real to-dos once we have them. So to-dos equals use store, or it's use store we call it, and then we're going to take the state and we want to return state.todos. Simple enough, that will be our to-dos. And if I change this from mock to-dos to to-dos, we should have absolutely nothing on the page because we don't have any to-dos yet. You'll also notice that we're getting a type error now. That's because we do have to go in and change our types here. So let's go ahead and change this to the type of to-do from types. Save that. And then we're gonna change this. This is where we had the actual to-do laid out. Instead of it being to-do, it's gonna be to-do.description because that's gonna be the actual description there. And then the other thing here we can do is change our key from just the to-do name to the to-do.id. So you know it's gonna be a unique string. Awesome. So next we want to do is actually call add to do. So when we want to call that is when we actually hit the submit button. So I'm going to create a function to do that. Well, let's grab the function. Let's grab the actual action from the store. So we're going to create add to do's, and we're going to use store state dot add to do. All right, cool. And then we want to then call this in a handler function. So I want to create the handler function. So handle submit click, or maybe just handle submit. And we want to pass in the event. So we go back here. So on submit of this button, we want to do two things. We want to do event.prevent default, so the page doesn't reload. And then we want to call add to-dos with the value of that item, of the input. So add to-dos will then be event.target, and we want to target the first object because there are two objects that will be, so we're going to pass this into the form component, and it's going to be the text field and the button that we're targeting here. So we want to target the first object because there will be two objects within the form component. So we want to target the first object and the value of that object, and that's what we're going to add to the to-do, add the description. So we'll go to form and we'll hit, we need to do things. We need to add to the button, we need to add the type of submit, and then form has a special property called on submit, and then we're going to handle submit, and then we just need to figure out the correct, that's probably not right. I think it's this one. This is the type React form handler. I think it's actually an input element. Save that. Maybe not. Event handler. No, that's not it either. Let's see if I can figure this out. Well, that's definitely not right, but let's see if this works. I think this is the same thing I wrote earlier, to be honest, but no, not that. All right, let's go ahead and check GitHub. Let's see what we did the last time we did this. All right, I don't know if we actually found a solution for this. Let's put it as type any for now, which is not recommended, but this is what we're going to do to just get it to work for the moment so I can continue and show you what's going on. We're going to get rid of mock to-dos and save that. And then, assuming we did everything right, it should just add to-do. So if I do to-do number 1 and submit that, there we go. Our to-dos are working. They're actually populating correctly, and you know, they're showing up where we want them to. But if you note, I mean, we can check and uncheck, but if you notice, we can't like delete them. I'm pretty sure this check and unchecked is not showing up in our store. So we do need to add a few more features. Again, if you're just joining us, definitely hop over to YouTube. That's Davidson Programming Academy on YouTube. And you can follow along with the screen share tutorial that I have on the big screen here. All right, so the next thing we're going to want to do now is we're going to want to add in that additional functionality, right? Because if you'll notice in the original app here, I actually have like a little strike through and the color changes when we actually hit that check state. And then, you know, we do have the delete button that actually works. So let's try and implement both of those things. First, let's implement the delete. So we're going to create another, back into our store, we're going to create another action called remove to do. And it's going to actually take in the ID, which is going to be of type string. And it's going to be pretty similar. It's going to return void. Save that. And then it's getting upset because we don't have it here, but we're going to add it, remove to do. And then again, ID, type string. And then it's going to set it to be of type. So when we get the to do, when we get the, we want to basically go through all of the to dos. So we want to go to dos will be to-dos dot filter for let's look up dot filter. Because this will return the array minus whatever component we remove. So we want to do to-dos dot filter where to-dos, and we want to make sure I'm doing this correctly. This is to-dos dot ID does not equal ID. Think that should, oh, no. To-dos dot filter. Oh, state.todos, my bad. State.todos does not equal state.todos dot I. State.todos dot filter. State.todos dot filter. What was it? JS to do. Where did I put it? Let's go back to GitHub. Oh, I have to check it on my other page. Hold on. All right. Oh, my bad. I did the check at the wrong point. All right. So what we want to do is to-dos is state.todos dot filter, and I need to pass to do. That would be really useful. All right, that's what the little error was there. All right, so filter for to do, and then it's going to be to do dot ID does not equal ID. That's what had to happen. All right, cool. So let's add a couple of to do. Let's to do 1, to do 2. We'll save those things. And then what we're going to do after that is we want to add this remove to do. We want to add it to our delete button. So we're going to go into our to do item, and then we're going to actually import that. So we're going to create remove to do equals, what is it, use store from store. And then we're going to pass in the state. And it's going to be state.remove to do. I'm going to save that. All right, and then we're going to call remove to do on the button click. So on click, just call remove to do. And that should be pretty straightforward. On click, ID. Oh, you know what? That's right. It's going to have to be, let's create another handler. So let's do same thing as before, basically. Const handle remove to do. Event, we're going to do event.prevent default. We're going to go with any for now, but we'll refactor that later. And then we're going to hit remove to do, which is going to be the, or no, you know what? That's silly. We just need to pass remove to do. And we're just going to pass in to do .id. That should be totally sufficient. Don't need to do a whole bunch of stuff. All right, cool. And then let's try it. Cool, awesome. So yeah, add like 10 to-dos and they go away. Awesome, so that's working. Any questions in the comments before I hop on to the next piece? No? Okay, cool. Do let me know if you have any questions. All right, so yeah, next thing we're gonna do here is we are going to, let's see, we want it to persist, right? So right now, if I refresh the page, all my to-dos are gone. And we don't want that to happen. We want it to stay. We want to come back to our to-do app and use it every day and, you know, have it persist. So I believe there is a function quite literally called persist. and we want to use that. And it's not persist, so stand. Okay. Yes, this is it. But I think with TypeScript, there's like another level. Something to do with DevTools. TypeScript guide. Yes, it's this one right here. So this is what we want to follow, this formatting, to basically add to our store to allow it to persist long-term, in local storage or session storage should you choose to change it. So what we're going to do here is just refactor our store ever so slightly. So we are going to, instead of passing set here, okay, so that set is basically just going to move down. And it seems like everything within that stays the same. So I'm just going to move this down here, close this, and open it back up. Okay, and then I'm going to import DevTools from Zust. I'm going to import this line right here, DevTools and persist from Zustand middleware. And then we're going to do DevTools, and then persist. And then we're going to move this up. Is all of that inside, or else all of that is inside this? Yeah. All right, so we're just going to move those two up. And I should be able to just save. No, probably did something wrong. Probably missed a step. Oh, 2 arguments, sorry. It needs a second argument. So that second argument it needs is the name of the store, because I'll show you in a minute in the application, but basically it's gonna like give it a label. So we have persist, and then we are going to have the second argument here, which is gonna be name, and we're gonna call it ToDo store. We're gonna save that. And, oh, did I put it in? Need to move it up one. That was it. Cool. All right. Awesome. So I think that's all we need to do in order to make it persist. Cannot use in. Let me see if I refresh. Okay, that was just a temporary error. So let's do ToDo number 1, ToDo number 2, and then let's refresh the page. Oh, there's a hydration error. Right. So with, I think it's a version of Next that it's using, but we do need to fix the hydration error. Let me pull it up again and search for it. Next.js, yes. There are like 2 or 3 ways to fix this. We're going to use this first one, using a use effect, going back to that page that I thought we were done with. Yeah, so we're going to add a use effect in here. And basically what this code is doing is basically just ensuring that the page is matching what it should. So it's going to load, and then it's going to like load the actual page. We're going to use effect here, and you'll see this in a second. So if I wrap this in an is client ternary, sorry, not tertiary, ternary, and then I say if it is the client, we're going to show ToDo container. If not, we're going to say loading. I'm going to go ... If you look up, so I'm going to do a refresh of this page. If you look up in the top left corner here, you'll see loading very, very briefly show up. So briefly, it didn't even show up, but I think it's in the middle. Loading, yeah, right there. So it's there, you just can barely see it. All right, so fix the hydration error. We have to-dos that are deleting, they're persisting. The last thing we want to do is we want to add the ability for it to check and basically cross the line through the actual to-do. So what we're going to do here is we want to add a third and final action called toggle checked. And we are going to take in, I think it's the ID again we want for that, yeah. And then we're going to return void, and then we're going to add it to the bottom here. And it's going to be toggle checked. We're going to take in the ID, and then it's going to be string, and we're going to call set state. Oops. then now for this one, what we want to do is actually, we want to take our to-dos. We're going to do a map of the to-dos. And then for each to-do, why did you not like that? Oh, you know what? My bad. To-dos. To-dos that map. For each to-do, we want to check to see if the if this is the to-do we're looking for. So to-do.id. If it is, then we want to set ID. No, sorry, we want to do checked. To-do.id. No, to-do.id equals the ID we're trying to check. So to-do.id, and then we want to do to-do, and then checked is not to do. So whatever the to do was previously, so if it was checked, we want it unchecked. If it was unchecked, we want it checked. To do.checked, and save that. Or it's going to be just the regular to do. So if it's not checked or unchecked, then we want it to just be to do. To do explicitly has any. I think I just need to change this to do. But it is good to be a little bit more consistent. All right. Whoops, that was not. All right, to do. Well, it's just of the type to do. To do's not map. To do's not map. Cannot find name to do's. Oh, state dot to do's. My bad. Awesome. Cool. So that should allow us to toggle the checks. Let me go over what we have here. So we have the to-dos will now be all the to-dos. We map through the to-dos. We check to see if that to-do has the ID of the ID that we're going to check for when we hit that toggle button. And then we're going to, if it does, we're going to return all the to-dos. And the checked of that particular to-do will be the opposite of the check, whether it was checked or unchecked, right? Because it's a toggle. And then, or we're just going to return the to-do. So now that we have that logic in place, let's go and implement it. So if we go to our to-do item again, we're going to go to the checkbox. And there's a particular property here. Let's do const toggle checkbox. Because I think we're going to need to use the event on this. On click equals toggle checkbox, and we're gonna pass in the event, and let me double check the checkbox API from MUI. Checkbox API, because I'm pretty sure, yeah, it's like event.target.checked. And it's a React change event. That's the event we want. All right, so we want to do, toggle to do. Do you want to do it like this? Toggle checkbox. No, we could actually do it really simple. All right, let's do const toggle checked equals use store, bracket state equals bracket state dot toggle checkbox. All right. Oops, not use state, use store. Cool. State dot toggle checked. Yes, that is what I want to say. And then on click, we're going to toggle checked. And then we're going to pass in the to-do.id. Cool. Awesome. So if I check it and I refresh, no, it doesn't persist. Why is that? I think we also need to set the checked, possibly. Maybe that's what it is. Yeah, so we do need to set whether or not checked is checked. All right, so checked would then be to-do.checked. So then if I check it, then I refresh. Right, okay, now it's staying. Awesome. So the other thing we want to do is we want to add some styling based on this, right? And this is the last thing we're going to do here as far as like styles and things like that go. So what we're going to do now is we wanted to basically do a strike through, and they also want the like color to fade a little bit on the actual text itself. So let's do that. What we're going to do here is whenever we get to-do.check is true, we want that to be applied. So that is going to be on the to-do.description. We can actually go ahead and just wrap this in a typography component and then use SX to, all right, so we're going to do, I think it's text decoration. Let's strike through. Let me look this up just in case. Line through, that would have been totally wrong. So line through, and we're gonna want this to be conditional. So if to-do.checked is true, to-do.checked, whoops, is true. To-do.checked is true. We want to do line through spelled correctly. If not, we want the text declaration to be none. And then the second one we're going to check on is if to-do.checked is true. And there are cleaner ways you can do this. I'm just doing it really quickly for the purpose of the demonstration. We're going to do color, to-do.checked. If it's true, we want the color to be, let's check to see what the color is right now, because I don't think it's exactly black. If you scroll into the CSS styles here, we can see, we can get the RGBA here. Okay, so it's a little lower in opacity. So grab that. And then, so if it is checked, I'm going to lower this to like 5. If not, we want it to be what it like normally. I think we can we do auto? We might be able to do auto. Yeah, awesome, cool. So we've added that styling in. I mean, there are little cleanup things we can do at this point. Like you see where in this box it says outline, we can change that. So we can have the label can be add your to do, you know, whatever we want to say. So that when you click on it, you know, you have a nice little prompt there to add your own to do. What else? What other things could we add? I think that might be it, to be honest. We've added in the ability to add to-dos. We've added in the ability to delete them. You know, we can check and uncheck them. We can refresh the page, and the checks and the unchecks persist. So yeah, this is a really simple way to build a to-do. To-dos are, you know, a sort of really simple project that you should be able to build. You don't have to go into all this detail in terms of styles and colors and things like that. But, you know, we've been going for about an hour, and we've been able to build and style a full to-do app. So it should be something that you can complete fairly quickly once you get the hang of it. If you do have any questions, please drop them in the chat, or, you know, follow me, you know, subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can reach out to me directly at davidsonprogrammingacademy.com. You know, you can schedule a call with me if you do have questions about coding or learning how to code. I do teach folks how to code for, you know, in my spare time. And yeah, if you have any questions, please reach out to me. If not, I will see you in the next one. All right.